Welcome back to the Kevin Henry Podcast. Before we dive into tonight's show, I want to remind you, hit that like button and subscribe and share this episode with your friends and family. We're bringing the truth to light, and we can't do this without you. If you believe in this fight against the corruption of the elites, for the cost of 1 cup of coffee at Starbucks, you can donate over at Ko-Fi.com. We've got the link down below. Help us keep shining the spotlight on the schemes they'd rather you never hear about. This episode is sponsored by Liquid Rides Marine Service Supercenter in Brazoria, Texas, celebrating 10 years of business. Liquid Rides is your one-stop shop for all of your boating needs. Our marine technicians are factory certified and can handle any outboard or inboard engine service or repair. Our electronics and rigging team are NEMA certified and can install everything from a head-turning custom JL audio stereo, chart plotters, trolling motors, LED lighting, power poles, additional ballast systems, or even a complete rewire. We also offer premium detailing using the best marine products on the market. And with Liquid Rides, your boat stays inside our building the entire time it's with us. Let our professional team fix it right the first time, saving you time and money. Give us a call today at 979-798-0123. Liquid Rides, Big Town Service Center, Small Town Atmosphere. Now, on tonight's show, back with us is Jeff Mashburn, a man who has been on the front lines exposing the fraud and corruption buried deep in our school systems and our tax structures. The last time Jeff was here, he laid out how these school bonds are nothing short of a Ponzi scheme, and folks listened. Together, we helped stop a $167 million bond right here in Brazoria County. But that was just the beginning. Tonight, Jeff is pulling the curtain back on how school districts, appraisal boards, and even energy companies are working hand in hand to bleed taxpayers dry. Through fraudulent bonds, property tax manipulation, and shady abatements for wind and solar projects. This is corruption that forces families out of their homes, rigs the system against the little guy, and lines the pockets of the powerful. This fight matters because if we don't stand up now, the game will stay rigged against ordinary Texans. Jeff is here to explain exactly how it works, why the SEC and courts are finally paying attention, and what it will take to hold the guilty accountable. So buckle up, because you're about to hear the truth they don't want you to know. No one is above the law. The people have had enough. We will root out the criminals and expose them all. We're fighting to expose the criminal element in Texas. Our investigation in the Brazoria County's justice system has just begun.
And now your host, Kevin Henry.
Welcome back to the show, Jeff Mashburn. Jeff, thank you so much for coming back on. We got a lot to talk about, but the one thing I do want to bring up real fast is that you helped us kill a $167 million school bond that Brazosport Independent School District was trying to pass. With your knowledge and the people's action, we were able to defeat that bond dead in its tracks and save the taxpayers a ton of money. So thank you for coming back on.
It's good to be back on.
Jeff, you're in Itasca. That's in Hill County, right?
Correct.
You've been feet to the fire. You've been fighting some big battles up there. What's going on lately?
Well, so since you and I spoke the last time, there has been a lot of forward movement in our work and efforts to expose the bond fraud with school districts, corruption regarding financing in school districts, property tax fraud. So myself and Mitch Vexler and Travis Spencer have been burning the midnight oil for a long time. There's now some heavy players involved in D.C., Washington, D.C., and law firms that are taking over with everything and taking it to the next level with the SEC. So there's a lot of attention and a lot of traction. And the taxpayers in Texas, I think, are finally, we believe, are going to get some relief and there's going to be some people held accountable for what's happening. We just need a little bit more time, but things are moving at warp speed right now. And a lot of things that's been going on in Texas have happened for a long period of time. I've been involved with my fight since 2006, almost 20 years. Mitch has been involved with his battle since 2016. People have no idea how much time and energy and work has been put in to get where we are today. And I'll have to say this, I'm sleeping pretty well right now because I see light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm ready to go fishing.
Yeah, trust me, man. I know exactly what you're talking about, fighting the good fight. I've been fighting the battle here in Brazoria County for several years now, exposing the fraud. And it's pretty much started with exposing the bond fraud and them running the ballots to the mall and trying to pass I think at the time it was about a $75 million bond, which sounds like a ton of money, but in perspective, it's not that much money compared to all these other schools, these other school districts. But what it is, it's a tax burden on the people that own homes and own property. And you don't even have to own a home. You can be a renter and your taxes are affected.
Yep.
Or your bottom line's affected because your landlord's going to go up in their price because you are going to be paying for that difference in what the value is. So obviously it affects everybody. It affects anybody with low income, high income. It doesn't matter. The property values are a direct correlation to how much is coming out of your pockets every time you go into that tax office.
Okay.
So what you've been doing and Mitch have been y'all been killing it. Thank you so much for standing in the fight.
Well, there's a lot going on. Travis and his YouTube channel is really just taking off, and he's involved with a major case down there with a CAD and assault. He was assaulted by a CAD official.
Yes.
And that's gone kind of parabolic, and he's got a lot on his plate. He's doing a good job. A lot more and more people are finding out just how crooked and how evil CADs are. But I want to go back to something real quick before we lose track of this. You're talking about the bond was defeated in Brazoria County. So on May 3rd, there were a lot of bonds that were defeated. There were some bonds that passed that surprised some people. To give you people an idea of how important it is to get involved, and I'll use Itasca as an example. We beat the bond on the day of the bond when the votes were counted. It's a $34 million bond package. It was 10 votes. So that's $3.4 million per vote that helped beat the bond.
Wow.
There were 2 provisional ballots, mail-in ballots that came in, so it came up 12 votes. So that made it about $2.8 million per vote. That is serious money, and people have to wake up and get involved. In Itasca, because the superintendent of schools and all of her regime showed up, it was the highest turnout in a little bitty rural town ever in Itasca for a school district. Right. And we still beat it. And we're going to beat the next one unless the feds come in and the SEC locks down Texas. There won't be any bonds going forward on November 4th because things are just taking it to the next level from the Fed level. And our hope and wishes are with the people involved right now is they're going to lock Texas down until this is all worked out in the court system.
Because we have a new government in the federal offices, and they're starting to understand the bond fraud that you guys have been proposing to them and showing them where the inconsistencies are.
Yeah.
So what exactly are the inconsistencies? What are they doing exactly that's illegal, and how are they perpetrating the crime?
Okay. All right. I'll try to cover this pretty quick because this all just went to the lawyers in D.C. I worked on this the other night to try to summarize this the best I can. So we call it the bond Ponzi scheme because that's exactly what it is. The only known value in a bond referendum put forth by a school district is the amount of money they advertise. Like in Itasca, Kate, I'll use an example. They want $34 million. What are we getting for our money? We don't know. They don't know. And this is what's got a lot of people we're waking people up. We have a school district, and this is all happens across the state of Texas, that wants $34 million of our dollars. We don't even have a set of drawings of what we're getting. We don't have plans and specifications. We don't have bid documents. We have no bids from contractors. The engineering's not even complete. So as the SEC starting to unwind this thing and figure out what's been going on for decades, we have a Ponzi scheme that starts in the school board room among school board trustees and superintendents who have their wish list of what they want and their favorite contractors who will put together some really crazy fraudulent numbers to throw out there, and nobody knows what we're getting.
And most of these people that are on these, so you have these bond steering committees that are out there and they're trying to influence the community into voting for this bond. So
Yes.
most of these people that are on these bond steering committees have always worked for somebody. They've never owned a business. They don't understand P&Ls. They don't understand checks and balances. They don't understand operating in the green. Like, they're always, all they want is more and more and more and more money from us, the taxpayers, the people that are getting kicked out of their homes. They have no idea how to run a legitimate business. They've always either worked for the government, which their paycheck is guaranteed every 2 weeks, or most of these people in these bond steering committees, a lot of them, they don't even work. They don't understand what it takes to keep a business in operation.
I use the story of they can't run a lemonade stand in the black. You know, They literally couldn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're out there proposing this ungodly amount of money, no matter what community you're in. Your smaller ISDs they're going to go for smaller bonds. Your larger ISDs are going to go for larger bonds. Around here, $160 million seems to be the normal. So we defeated a $167 million bond in Brazosport ISD. Now we're going to try to defeat a Angleton ISD bond. It's $160 million. And we're going to put this on the screen, Pete, but all the people that are involved in this bond steering committee that are out there to try to perpetrate this crime on the rest of the community, I don't even know. Do you think they're unsuspecting, or do you think they know exactly what they're doing with this Ponzi scheme? I
think there are those that know how to work the system from the schools. I mean, school board members and school superintendents are trained by TASB to do what they do and to know how to put it over the taxpayer. Believe me, it's more evil than you could even imagine. The other side of it is taxpayers aren't doing their job. And we talked about this before. Taxpayers are set on their laurels and just thinking everybody else is taking care of it for them until you lose your home. Mm-hmm. Now, to give you an example, and I mean, I've had this conversation today with several people today, and they had no idea. And these are smart people. I mean, friends of mine who just now learned how the game is rigged against them. So on August the 10th or 11th, Monday night of last week, I went to a school board meeting in Itasca, and they were putting a presentation on by a law firm was going to come and do a presentation to the board about the proceeds from foreclosed properties in the district that they foreclosed on. So they were handed a check just short of $60,000, and you know, there's everybody's smiling and grinning. Oh man, they're happy they got their $60,000. Not one board member or the superintendent raised a question or asked a question. Who were these people that we took their house away from? Now,
they're people that couldn't afford their property taxes.
Yeah. So here you got a school district, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. And this is the story why we're getting this out. It's just now getting to people. People always think it's the county taking your house away on property taxes. It's not. The county's not taking your. Let me back up. The CAD, the Central Appraisal District. Yeah. They blame the Central Appraisal District for taking their house. Now, a county constable and a sheriff is the people that show up to evict you and take your house. But it's worse than that. The lever, the tool, the means that allows all that process to take place is in the boardroom of the school district. The school board and the superintendent put forth the annual school budget, send it to the comptroller's office and the TA, and then it gets to the CAD. And the CAD is mandated by law to fund that budget. However they have to do it, increase property taxes or raise your tax rate. But the mechanism that causes people to lose their house is the signatures on annual school budgets by the board members and the superintendent, and they're the ones that are causing it. It's not what people think. Oh, well, the county's taking my taxes or the CAD. It's the school district and the board members and the superintendent, and that is what people are now starting to figure out.
Yeah, and we went out there and everybody collectively beat this BISD school bond. and then they had to go in and they had to start slashing making cuts in their budget. Thank you. That's exactly what we wanted you to do. Stop living outside your means. Everybody has to do it. I have to do it as a homeowner. I have to do it as a business owner, and you have to do it as a school board member. You have to do it. You have to live within your means. So if you don't have the money, stop spending it.
So to that point, we have asked dozens of school districts over the last several years for their budget, and they refuse to turn it over to us because they don't have one. Do you know what a school district uses as a budget, or what they call their budget? They take how much they spent last year and add to it in projecting, well, we're going to get this much more from the CAD, so we're going to bump it up just like the federal government. You know, there's no budget that they sit down and said, okay, I've got this many teachers and this salary and this and this, and let's try to make the taxpayer dollars spent more efficiently and save some money in different categories. They don't have it broken down that way. They just know they spent this much last year. Let's add on some more. Property taxes went up. House values went up. It is not a budget. A budget is something you put together and you plan for, and you either exceed it or you fall under it. They don't work that way.
No, they don't care. I mean, when it's not their money, why would you care, right? They don't care. They were taught from the last school board member that was on there and the board member before that. Yeah. When you can continue to pass these fraud bonds and push this off to the taxpayer, the homeowners, they don't care. Yeah. They get these kickbacks. They get to go eat all these fancy dinners with all these people and go to these galas, and they don't want to go against the system. All they care about is pushing and making sure that school fraud bond gets pushed through so they can continue with another regime. They can continue building the newer school, the latest and greatest, keeping up with the Joneses. And I don't even think the teachers are getting the raises and stuff they deserve. It's all about embezzlement and money laundering. And also, I mean, I don't know what the 313 agreement, what do the 313 agreements have to do with the school bonds, Jeff? Can you explain that?
So that's what the SEC is looking at right now, how this is all falls together. And this was a Ponzi scheme from the get-go, from the state of Texas and all the legislators who went along with the Chapter 313 idea.
Explain to the viewers that don't know what a 313 agreement is. Okay,
so to start out with, a 313 agreement is an agreement between a school district and a company. It could be an oil and gas company. It could be, and up here where we're at, what we're dealing with are solar and wind farm projects. And school districts are giving these solar farm owner operators tax abatements. Huge tax abatements, millions of dollars.
Here in Brazoria County, we have solar farms down in the county south of us in Matagorda County. And in Brazoria County, we have we have solar farms in Brazoria County, wind farms in Matagorda County.
So in the 7 counties that surround up where I'm at, there are thousands of acres of solar farms, and there's more going in, and there's hundreds and hundreds of wind turbines, and there's more going in. So what happens, and this is what the SEC is looking into now, and now everybody's trying to figure out, how did this ever happen? We ever allowed this to happen, or the government even, or the state of Texas ever think this was going to work? They pitched the idea to the school district, like Itasca. I have it on record, their comments, that if we give this solar farm company a tax abatement, they'll build the solar farm in our taxing jurisdiction and we'll get some tax revenue. That's how they pitch it. That is not any way, shape, or form true.
Who do they pitch it to? Who is it pitching the sales pitch? The snake oil is what it sounds like. And who's the one that's buying the snake oil?
Well, it's your solar farm people and investors getting with their favorite state representative, saying, "Hey, we're thinking about." I was involved with what's going on in Hill County from way back. And basically, what happens? They get with their favorite legislators and state reps and say, "Hey, we want to build some solar farms in this area. We need your help, and we would like to get tax abatements." Now, do they need the tax abatements to make the project work? No, not at all. A solar farm is located where there is available farmland, ranch land, or undeveloped land that's not being used. And what these solar farm people do is they go out there and they map out these areas and find out, well, there's farmland that's not being farmed. Maybe a farmer that had 10,000 acres doesn't farm anymore. He's an older person and his kids don't want it. And it's sitting feral. It's not doing anything. That's a perfect candidate for a solar farm company to go talk to those people who now, maybe that's the younger generation, says, well, yeah, we don't want to farm it. And they're going to get $1,000 an acre per year to lease it to a solar farm owner operator. That's a great deal if you're that landowner. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they look for. They look for land that's cheap in large parcels that are adjacent to each other along transmission line routes. Now, if you look down here where I'm at, all the solar farms follow the major transmission routes. And the reason for that is it minimizes their cost to interconnect to the grid. The third criteria is they want it close to areas where there's the highest demand on the grid. Because what people don't understand is just because you have a solar farm and wind farm doesn't mean you get to sell your electricity to the grid. That's all done on market values and real-time pricing. The abatement is icing on the cake to the solar farm company and probably funds a lot of war chest and kickbacks to a lot of people. And
so what you're describing, I'm sitting here thinking about this in terms that I know specifically, but in Texas, and I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm sure you know the name of these gas stations, but they have super clean bathrooms, right?
Yeah.
These gas stations have extremely clean bathrooms. We all know exactly what gas station I'm talking about. Yeah. Every single one of them gets a tax abatement before they put the first driveway in to build the gas station.
Yeah.
And the way they do that, so I'm told, is that they go into these small cities, and you're saying the solar farms are on major transmission line areas. Well, these gas stations are on major highway line areas,
exactly.
Right? And they go and they find these small town city council members that don't have a pot to piss in, basically, and they bribe them with $20,000, $25,000, and then they go in and they steer the rest of the city council members, and they pass a 25-year tax abatement, so they don't have to pay taxes for 25 years.
Yep.
So I own a business in the same area as one of these gas stations that have super clean bathrooms. Why does he get to go out there? Why does he get to build his business and not have to pay taxes, but I do?
Yeah.
So it sounds kind of similar. Like it's all bribery, money laundering. It seems like it's all the same game, different field of work. So
what's going to happen, and just so taxpayers are very clear, and they need to be paying attention, because there's some major stuff fixing to happen, and there's going to be a mass exodus of people leaving the public school system because they're going to be exposed for what they've been doing. One of the fights that Mitch has in his cases, and by the way, his case is at the Texas Supreme Court, was filed yesterday, and major things are happening now. But one of the big arguments in his case, and with the solar farm case my case, is what it has to do with what they call uniform and equal under the USPAP rules. Being treated fairly as a homeowner and a taxpayer at the same level anybody else is. Now, if you want to hear how deceptive and evil and fraudulent this is, this will make your skin crawl. So a solar farm company gets this tax abatement with an Itasca ISD. It's $965 million for the solar farms, and they get this tax abatement agreement. And they basically, on two of the farms, they get taxed at 4% of the solar farm's value, real property value. So, and a lot of people are starting to really, like I said, a lot of people are learning how this is rigged against you. Your house, my house, any homeowner house in a county that's within a taxing jurisdiction of a school district is taxed based on its real property value assessed by the CAD. Real property. That's what ad valorem taxes are. They're taxes on real property. Now, a solar farm company goes in and builds a solar farm on somebody's property, a ranch, a farmer, or a combination of ranchers and farmers, and they lease the land. But what they're installing on that land is real property. It's solar farm equipment. It has a real value, just like your house. Not only did they give the solar farm companies the abatements not to pay taxes, they gave them depreciation schedules. So they get to depreciate the value of the solar farm like 10% over the next 10 years to a value of zero.
Wow.
Now, people will go, well, Jeff, that's equipment. People get, business owners get to depreciate their equipment. I understand that, but it's real property. Mm-hmm. I have an electrical system in my house, and I have an air conditioning system in my house, and I have a plumbing system, and I have a roof. Why don't I get to depreciate the value of my house instead of it appreciating and you raising my taxes?
All the way to zero.
All the way there. So this uniform and equal under the law and the Constitution and USPAP, they've been violating the statute and our civil rights for decades. This is all fixing to blow up in their face because the civil suits coming forward. Now, civil suits are not against a school district. You can't sue a school district and get a penny. But I can sue a superintendent and I can sue board members for violation of constitutional rights. And that's where we're at today.
Jeff, hold that thought. Let me get a word from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Looking for real coverage from real people? Whether it's your home, car, or business, go see Landra Olson's team at Farmers Insurance in West Columbia, Texas, where hometown service meets top-rated protection. Need a barn built to last? At Stuckey Barns in Brazoria County, Texas, we blend quality craftsmanship with rugged durability and Texas pride to make your dream barn real. From custom barns to metal buildings, we build strong, local, and backed by hometown service. Need bold, high-quality ink? Seven Souls Tattoo Studio has you covered. We're obsessively clean and professional, guiding you from idea to unforgettable art. Got old ink? We'll transform it into stunning new work with precision and creativity. Drop by Seven Souls at 20 Circle Way in Lake Jackson, Texas. Fentanyl is taking our loved ones' lives every day, but knowledge can save them. Travis's Voice is dedicated to raising awareness, educating communities, and preventing future tragedies. To learn more, go to travis'svoice.org.
And now, back to the Kevin Henry Podcast.
Welcome back, Jeff Mashburn with Texas Conservative Alliance and commonsenslaw.org. Jeff, thank you for waiting there for a minute. So, Jeff, I heard there's another funding mechanism that the school districts are using outside of solar farms and wind farms. Do you know more about that?
Yeah. So Kevin, and we have talked about this in the last time we met a little bit, but this is another one of the most corrupt, evil, deceptive things that's ever been launched on taxpayers that started over 30 years ago in Texas. And I'm fully involved and knowledgeable in that area because when I got out of the contracting world and went into the engineering side of things and wanted to learn engineering and stuff in the state of Texas and across the country back then, energy conservation was a big buzzword. And it sounds great. And I was real interested in energy conservation and I wanted to get into engineering. And so I kind of, my segue into the engineering world was through energy conservation projects done in the state of Texas in schools, city, county, state government, using a very, very fraudulent, deceptive method and system of getting these projects done and financing them that's totally hidden from the public. And energy conservation is a good thing to shoot for, and I recommend it for everybody, but it's got to make sense. And when I say sense, it's got to make money sense. And as I got into it, I started finding out it's a rigged system, and people are getting rich selling different types of snake oil tactics and ideas to school districts. And it's funded through a system of funding that the legislature set up that's hidden from taxpayers. And the whole idea behind this energy conservation legislation in the Ponzi scheme was, and this is the pitch, they go into these school districts and say, hey, Brazoria or Houston ISD or Austin, y'all need some air conditioning systems. Y'all's equipment's pretty bad shape, or you need some new lighting. And they go in there and tell these districts, we're going to replace this lighting, we're going to replace these air conditioning systems, and it's not going to cost you a penny. Now, any normal person that has a brain cell probably is thinking to themselves, this sounds like a too good to be true story. Well, it is exactly too good to be true.
Anytime somebody walks into my office with some crap like that, I just tell them, get out.
Get out the door. So these companies, and these are what I call I call them smart crooks. I mean, they go to college, they get engineering degrees, and they come up with this system and this plan to get rich. So all they've got to do is get a hold of their favorite legislators in Austin and bend some ears in their school districts and get their pack together and their lobbying group to pitch this idea where we're going to fund projects for schools in Texas and it's not going to cost the taxpayer a penny. Well, let me tell you, that's all come unglued right now, and there's people heading for the door.
So how does that work? Give us an example of a product or a service.
We'll just say lighting and air conditioning, because that's two of the big ones. So let's say you go in there and the school district's got air conditioning units on the roofs that's 20 years old, and they need to replace them. So under the normal way it should work, the school districts ought to go out for bids. They ought to hire an engineering firm to put together a project, engineer it, put plans and specs together, bid documents, and they go bid it out on the street. And then if they have money to work with, maybe they can fund it from money they have, or they might need to raise a bond. And they have to use competitive bidding processes that are mandated by the TEA code. Well, what they did is say, hey, we can help you get this done, and you don't have to raise a bond, you don't have to do anything. That's not going to cost you a penny, because we're going to pay for it by the energy savings these new air conditioning units are going to create. I got to be careful what I say on the air right now, because there's some stuff going on right now that people are digging in deep to that's going to be used in court. But basically, the idea is a high school had an electric bill of $100,000 a month. They're going to put the new air conditioning systems in, and it's going to drop the bill to $50,000 a month. So the $50,000 a month savings over 20 years is a pretty big number. Mm-hmm. So we're going to fund this project over 20 years of guesstimated energy savings that can't be quantified. And that's the part that everybody's now starting to figure out.
Any 10-year-old can get on ChatGPT and have a bar graph drawn to show some fake data. So is that all they do? Is they just produce some BS documents?
Yeah. So in the statute. So anyway, so let me kind of stay on track so I don't lose the audience here. So the idea is we're going to do this for you, and it's not going to cost you a penny. Now, technically, in the rules and those statutes of Texas, they basically would look at that as what they call a debt neutral impact to taxpayer. We're not going to pay, it's not going to cost us anything, because we're going to pay for it from energy savings. That doesn't happen, has never happened in the state of Texas to this day anywhere. Now, let me say something, because you'll get a lot of calls that say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Does the project generate energy savings? Absolutely. If you change the air conditioning system out at your house, or I change it out at my house, and I take an old system that was rated at 10 SEER efficiency, and I put a 15 SEER system in, you're going to save energy. There's no question. Quantify it in real data and real numbers with real energy bills. Real bills. It doesn't exist. So the investigators I've talked to, I've walked them through this, and they're trying to get their mind around this. A high school has an electric meter at the back of the building somewhere that they read every month, and it's $100,000 a month electric bill. That bill is for lights, air conditioning, computers, kitchen equipment, whatever else is in the school, just like your house, hot water heaters. That bill doesn't tell the school district how much was used for the air conditioning for 1 month. There's no revenue meter that metered the use of electricity in which the district got a bill that says, okay, the air conditioning part of the bill for the month was $30,000 out of the $100,000. Without knowing that number, I can't project anything going forward.
Right.
I can't tell you what you're going to save if I don't know what you're using to begin with. Well,
so it's like a budget. You got to have, if there's line items, you got line items for everything that draws electricity.
So what they created with these smart guys and engineers and all these people, these systems of estimating and calculating and manipulating what they think the energy was based on a lot of fancy technobabble. But it's not quantifiable. So they start with data that's been manipulated and stipulated and guesstimated to come up with the savings that's stipulated, guesstimated in the future 20 years down the road. Now, here's the technical part that got thrown out in the case in the Valley a few years ago. which set the precedents for everything we've got going forward. You got to think about this part, okay? And thank God we had a judge down there that was a smart judge. He figured this out. We explained it to him. He understood it. If a company, this company shows up to your school district and says, we're going to do this, and you agree to do it as a school board, and you do this project, number one is you're going to pay 2, 3, 4 times more than what it's worth normally, and you're going to get your new air conditioning systems, and everybody's going to be happy because the air's cold in the classroom, and everybody thinks, oh, this is great. The problem is you got to pay this contractor, this energy service company, up front, all of his money. So he sends invoices into the school district for everything, and they get paid now. The school districts, what they've done where they're in trouble is they've gone out and set up escrow accounts with third-party financing institutions, off-balance sheet, long-term lease purchase agreements for 20. Well, it started out in the day at 10 years, and then they went to 15, and now they're 20.
So off-balance sheets meaning not of public knowledge.
Not of public knowledge. It doesn't even show up as debt.
So you can't send an information request. You can't get that knowledge, how much debt that school district is really in. Even when they're trying to pass a bond, you can't even request those numbers.
Well, here's the problem. This is what they're finding out now. When a school district votes on these kind of projects, these energy projects that last 20 years, it cash flows for 20 years into the future. Those board members that voted on that and that superintendent 5 years down the road aren't even there anymore. There's no continuity. Nobody knows, we're writing this check to Bank of America or Wells Fargo for $21,000 a month for some account. I don't even know what it is. They're just writing the check. And
so the new guys are paying off the old fraud.
They're paying off the old fraud. They have no clue what they're even done. And not only that, when the energy savings didn't happen, let's just say, for example, the project was supposed to generate $20,000 a month in air conditioning energy savings. But in reality, it only generated 10. They still had to make that payment to the third-party financing. So they write $10,000 of it out of the O&M fund. Totally violates the whole statute.
Right.
That's
with the interest attached.
Well, and interest. So what happened in the Valley, in a case that I was working with a lawyer as a consultant and helped them walk through this, because it's a complicated mess. You have to have been on that side of the fence to understand how it's manipulated. But the judge said, in the case down there, a city manager wrote a check to an ESCO company for $6.5 million for a bunch of water meters set in a warehouse. Now, the escrow account had a zero balance, but he wrote a $6.5 million check to the bank. When the city was invoiced, they had to write a check.
Jeff, are these those water meters that they're trying to get in all these cities that it's a BS scam itself?
I can't really go down that road because that's still going on. That's another whole different topic.
The water meters that are supposed to save you money because they're accurately counting the water consumption, but actually the old meters were doing a heck of a lot better job.
Well, so they took the statute, a performance contracting statute or ESPC legislation, and manipulated it. These like I said, these guys are smart crooks. When the air conditioning and the lighting and the control system stuff, they called the low hanging fruit to go after, and then they had to start finding out new ways to make money. So they come up with the water meter gimmick here, quite a while back, and everybody fell for that. But the question, so the judge down in the Valley, he's a pretty smart guy. He goes, now how's a water meter supposed to save me money? Well, it doesn't. That's the problem. The legislation was drafted originally as energy savings, and it still is to this day. The water meter projects were revenue increasing projects to the city. So I'll give you an example, make it real simple. You're at your house, you got a water meter. It's buried out there in the ground in a meter, the old timing water meter. Mm-hmm. The guy goes out there months and reads it, sends you a bill. These smart crooks pitched this idea to all these city managers and all these water meter companies and places. Well, we can put an electronic meter in that you can read from a cell phone, a cell tower, and you don't even have to have a meter reader anymore. So you can get rid of him. And your customer for the last 20 years has been getting free water because your old meter wasn't very accurate and it wasn't measuring all the water through the meter accurately. So you're losing revenue. So we're going to put the meter in and recapture what they think is lost revenue, and that increase in revenue pays for this meter over 20 years' time. Now, this is let me tell you, a fifth grader can figure this out, Kevin.
But these morons that are in these positions of power believe this bullshit. Yeah. So are they getting kickbacks to get this thing moving, or did that freaking dumb?
So down in the valley, there was a huge case, and this was a huge break for taxpayers. There were 3 energy contracts down there that were investigated by the U.S. Justice Department, and a multi-million-dollar kickback scheme was exposed between school district people and city managers and water meter people involved with all these contracts with an ESCO that got nailed in this. And that's still going on. I mean, this hasn't stopped yet. And because that water meter contract came out that way, there are still cities all across Texas still doing this. And let me tell you, some of these people are fixing to have some heartburn about what's fixing to come to their door. So one of the things people get themselves into, they don't understand their role and their position and what they're held accountable to. A school board member, for example. A school board member is elected to the school district because a bunch of people like him or her. You know, he's a friend of everybody. They're easygoing people, and they're going to vote 100% in favor of this, whatever the school superintendent of the school wants.
And they're going to put their spouse on the bond steering committee.
It could be.
That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
But what the problem is, they have another role. They have a dual role, and that is to protect the taxpayers' money. So, by the way, I'm running for school board in Itasca. I just turned my paperwork in last week.
Nice. Good for you.
It's kind of a procedural thing right now. But so the application you fill out says that you're sworn by an oath to uphold the laws of the Texas State Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the TEA. By law, I'm supposed to uphold the constitutional laws of the United States and people's rights and their citizens' rights and their civil rights. These board members have totally violated my rights, lots of people's rights, and ignored them, and that's fixing to hit them right square in the head because down the board, they've not done anything for taxpayers in Itasca. I mean, right. they have hurt and continue to get their way and do what they want to. So the water meter thing is a whole different deal. But these energy contracts that have been funded under this Ponzi scheme of we're going to pay for it by assumed future energy savings. That's a whole problem in itself. But the funding mechanism, the legal part of it, and the documents and the paper, what they're finding out, and it's been exposed, there's 2 contracts involved when they do this with the school district. There's an installation contract that's done between the school district and the ESCO company that allows them to get paid their money up front. And then they go look for their next victim.
So they get in, they get out. They
out.
They come in, they buy off, and they bribe the locals. Yeah. You get this thing going.
Yeah. So the school district has a contract, the financing contract with the bank, whoever that bank is, to repay this debt of $10 million, $20 million, $30 million. In La Jolla's case, all of them added up was $52 million from an account that's empty. It started out empty. So in the water meter contract in Mission, the judge asked the city manager if he wrote this check, which the judge had the copy of the check. It was $6.5 million, give or take. And the city manager said, "Yes, Your Honor, I did." And the judge asked him, "What account did it come out of?" "Well, it came out of this account we set up for this project." "And what kind of account is that, sir?" "It's an escrow account." "What was the balance of the escrow account when you wrote the check?" "Zero." "Mr. City Manager, you wrote a hot check for $6.5 million.
Hey, but there's no accountability.
So some of these people have been caught and have been sentenced, and there are people serving time now.
Really?
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
And this is fixing to just go parabolic in Texas because you know how many people have done the same thing?
Yeah.
And have been part of this? There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have been doing this for a long time.
That's good. That's good that there's actually somebody holding their feet to the fire, and because surely there can't be a statute of limitations when you're writing $6.5 million hot checks.
Well, so we've asked some legal experts on that. I have in the last few years about the statute because that has come up. So what we think is going to help us, because a lot of these school districts that have done this, there's over 400 some school districts in the state of Texas that have done these stupid things they've done. A lot of these contracts are old and their terms are over. But the contracts that still are in place and the lease term agreement is still being paid, the payments being paid off, that contract is not done until the final payment's made. So the statute of limitation doesn't kick in until it's completed. So
Nice.
That's a legal move we've got in court. All these ESCO contracts that have been out there that are still being debt service still has got to be met. That statute of limitation hasn't started yet.
So keep that in mind, school bond members or school board members and city managers and all the people involved with signing us up, us taxpayers, for 20 plus years of debt. We will go after you.
And hide it from us.
Yeah. We will go after you because the people are waking up now and they're fed up with this nonsense.
Yeah.
So if there's no statute of limitations, think twice about signing up the next time you want to go do some BS with our checkbook.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately what it is. I got a question for you, kind of a different topic. Do you guys have an older judge in his 60s that's having sexual relations with people on the school board, younger women in Itasca?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, we had a superintendent arrested in an online scheme with online sex trafficking online, and he got arrested at the school.
Sex trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, online solicitation.
Oh,
it was a sting across the state of Texas, and he was one of the ones they caught.
And this was in Hill County?
Yeah, Hill County and Itasca. The superintendent of schools. Yeah,
when was this?
This would have been in 2020. This is 2022.
So it was recent. It was 3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, and now and so we're on our third superintendent in like 5 years.
So we have a thing here. Our politicians, I guess they can't stay faithful to their spouses. You see a lot of divorces. You see a lot of separations. It's the strangest thing. For these people to be such godly people and them to be out there, our quote unquote leaders in our community, they can't even stay faithful to their wives or their husbands. But here we are supposed to listen to these people for moral guidance and them be our leaders in our community. How do we come to this point where moral depravity is the way of life now? And those are the people out in front leading the way, pushing these fraudulent school bonds, forcing the homeowners into debt. That's just slave debt. And older generations that are on a fixed income, they can't even make their notes anymore, and they're having their homes taken away from them. But meanwhile, our leaders are out gallivanting around, screwing anything that walks, and having these crazy parties, feeding alcohol to children. I mean, it's one thing after another, one scandal after another. Like our local sheriff exposed his genitals to a young female at an office in a local town, at an office. It's been out there. Everybody knows about it now. He actually sprung an illegal out of his jail that had an ICE detainer on him. You have all these people that are morally bankrupt, but then you have a population in our community that supports this nonsense. They don't go and stand behind the people that actually want to fight for justice and fight for a balance sheet. We want to operate in the green. We want to pass something on to our children and our grandchildren that's not just a pile of debt.
Right.
But when you're following these morally bankrupt leaders, school board members, city managers that are putting death threats out on city council members, judges, sheriffs, JPs, the whole shit show, all of them are morally bankrupt.
It's funny you brought that up that way, Kevin, because almost 5 years ago, I met with our judge here in Hill County, who was our judge at that time, Judge Lewis, and we discussed solar farms and Chapter 313 agreements. And we kind of got on the subject in a kind of a crazy way, but it came up. And he asked me some questions about it, and I thinking, well, wonder really kind of why he's asking me. And we talked about it a little bit, and I told him what I thought about the solar farm Chapter 313 agreements and the whole thing. And I said, I can tell you this, because I already knew they were coming to Hill County, and he did too. I've known they were coming to Hill County for a while. But I told him, I said, if you let this happen, we're going to court. And he just looked at me, raised his eyebrow. What are you talking about? I said, this whole Ponzi scheme and this idea that these school districts are going to get some tax revenue, a little piece of the available tax revenue the district could have gotten, or the county or the city, and let these solar farms, have these huge abatements, I said, isn't going to go over real well. And I said, that little piece of money that we're going to get, and just to give you an example, because this is part of our court case, at that time, the 2022 bond that we voted down in Itasca, 3-1, that bond, the $20 million bond that they advertised, 39% of the debt payment was coming from an abatement with the solar farm. Mm-hmm. Now, I raised this up with Judge Lewis, and the SEC now is on this. That money's not secured. It's not bonded. There's no performance bond or surety bond with a financial institution that's guaranteed that income stream for however the term of the bond is. So if this solar farm company goes bankrupt, the taxpayers are on the hook for that 39% of that payment, and we didn't even get a vote in the matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, we already have in Hill County our first solar farm bankruptcy, and I am trying to set up meetings with some landowners that were impacted by that and the fallout of that, because it's already happened. In Itasca, the first solar farm contract they signed for $135 million, and it was the smallest of the three they did. That solar farm company's changed names. They're on their third name change.
Who pays to get that Chinese garbage off that property?
Well, so that's the landowner. That's why I'm going to go talk to the landowners right now, because they're not having any success getting any lawyers to represent them. So what these landowners are now figuring out, I leased my land to these guys, and they haven't got, from what I've been told, verify until I actually talk to them, but I've been told based on what's happened, they haven't got paid for 2 years. Now they're mad and they don't know what to do, and the solar equipment's on their land. So somebody's got to pay to take it off.
They got tractors, right?
It's going to wind up being the landowner.
Yeah.
And now you got an issue about the ag exemption. In Texas, it could take you 5 to 7 years to get ag status back. So you're going to pay taxes at market value, even if you get the junk off your property, because you got to reestablish that ag status.
So all the smoke and mirrors is coming to fruition. They're starting to understand that they were got.
Yeah.
They were manipulated, they were lied to, and now they're left holding the bag. They're going to have to go get that garbage off their property. So
I had a conversation. I've had a conversation with 2 lawyers this week, and both of them now are really, I'm sure, very nervous about our conversation. But one of the lawyers I talked to represents landowners in Southern Hill County and done a lot of leases with solar farm companies and landowners to help the landowners get the best lease possible. That's a good thing from the landowner standpoint. But what he told me, without understanding what he told me, and this lawyer is going to be subpoenaed in court because of what he said, this is what I told everybody for 5+ years here in Hill County. The abatement means nothing. Those solar farms were going to get built here regardless of whether you sign an abatement with them or not. And that's where the school board members think I'm crazy, but they're fixing to find out the reality of the matter. But this lawyer told me, he goes, yeah, Jeff, he goes, when we worked our tails off when all this stuff started happening down there to get all these land leases done and the land secured for the solar farm people so they could start building solar farm. Well, what's that tell you? It was already started. Yeah. They didn't need an abatement. They were going to do it anyway. Just proved my point.
Yeah.
So
no, it's all a scam. Everything, if it's too good to be true, it's a scam. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
If I would have known that earlier in my years, when I, in my 20s, 30s, especially when I first started my business, if I would have known these scams and these BS lies, if I'd had my radar up a lot earlier, I wouldn't have fallen for some of the crap that I fell for. It's part of growing up, and it's part of taking ownership in your endeavors. And one thing that I've noticed is that people have always, like these school board members, they always turn around and they blame somebody else, whether it's the past administration or their leadership or something else, or they were lied to, or just negligence. They always blame somebody else and they never take the blame for themselves.
Exactly.
And I've always taken the blame for myself when I made a mistake.
Yeah.
These people in government, these people in power never take the blame for themselves.
Yeah.
We have to hold their feet to the fire. We have to get good people to go run for these offices or run against them, because we can get them out, but who's going to run against them? So we have to encourage others that are morally grounded to run for those offices.
The website name that I have now, commonsenselaw.org, came about for a reason. And it's from the book Thomas Paine, Common Sense, that was written over 250 years ago. And if anybody's not familiar with that book or know anything about it, I encourage you to go find it and read it and study it. It's in Old English style writing. But Thomas Paine was a young guy back in his day. He was way ahead of his time. Everything he's written in that book, we are living it out today in real time. What he warned us about how government changes and becomes corrupt and evil and self-serving, we are seeing it in real time. And he warned about the part about taxes and property being taken away from people 250 years ago.
Wow.
And the saddest thing to see and hear is when a 68-year-old widow who's living in the home that her and her husband lived in for 40, 50 years, and he passed on and she's still there, barely making it, but making it. And then these school districts go past these huge bonds that push your taxes up, or something happens with the land. And this is something I also want to encourage people: make sure you file your homestead exemptions when you're eligible.
Right.
If you don't, they are going to do everything they can to push the value of that property up until you hit that 65 mark or whatever.
Yeah.
And before they lock your taxes down. But when you have a widow who is forced out of her house because she built on or added a garage or something to her property that caused the tax rate the assessment to be reset. And what they do is they'll go in there and totally reset the whole evaluation method to how modern houses are built instead of a house that was built in the 50s or 60s, and its cost per square foot, and create a taxing problem that she can't afford.
Right.
And then you lose it. When that house is forfeited or she forfeits on the taxes because she can't pay them, this is what happens that people do not understand what happens. When your house is taken away because you couldn't pay for it and the constable comes up and says you're evicted and that house is foreclosed, it'll go to auction on the courthouse steps. So just so people understand just how the math works, it's scary. Let's say your home's worth $200,000. Your tax liability that you owe, you can't pay, is $8,500. This house goes to auction on the courthouse steps, 10 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar. Sells for $20,000 to an investment pool of people who want to take advantage of the people that have lost their house. The school district gets their $8,500 that they're due. Where does the other $20,000 go? That's a question the lawyers have not answered yet and will not answer.
Wow.
And then just think, you have a home that somebody built, their whole life was there. They raised their kids there. They owned it, and it got taken away from them for $8,500.
Yeah.
Really? That's what we are doing in America?
These people are cowards. They have no, like I said, they're morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
No good moral human being would ever do that to a widow, number one, an older widow. Now you have to go live with somebody else. You have to live at a home or something, all because of greed in the school district debt.
Well, Travis and Mitch has a young woman that they've talked to, and it's been on the show that they did, Carrie, who's a young mom with daughters, and she lost hers because of this. And she did everything right as a young person could do, a single mom, and lost it all because of taxes. And so it's not just the older people, it's even younger people that are feeling this pain and this squeeze and what goes on and how it works. But it's sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope to have you back on whenever you can give us some good news about these lawsuits. I know you had to stay kind of hush hush about it, but we want to hear all about it whenever you come back on, and hopefully it's all good news. Yeah,
there's going to probably be some stories going to come out in the major media here fairly quickly regarding Texas and maybe some other states now that everybody's starting to really understand what happened, how bad it is.
Yeah. Well, keep us posted on all that. And thank you so much. And thank you for helping us understand the school bond fraud, the 313 agreements and everything else. Tell them what your website is, Jeff.
CommonSenseLaw.org. You can stay up to speed on what's going on. We're posting everything there. It's kind of a depository of information for everybody. A lot of data there. You can learn a whole lot there, what's going on across Texas. I just encourage everybody to get involved.
Yep.
When you go to sleep at night, these crooks are at work. So stay involved.
Absolutely. Well, have a great weekend, Jeff, and thank you again. So thank you so much.